Hello, all. Welcome back to Winter Talks, where we talk to some crazy people about some crazy stuff. Because let's be honest, if you're not doing this with me, you're actually kind of normal. I did that wrong. God damn it. Today, we have special guest Cosmic Rayne. Or. What? Cosmic Rayne? What? Cosmic Latte. Rayne, Blanc, whatever the name that they all go by is. How are you today? Sorry, that intro was weird.
You're fine. It's only going to get weirder from here. Because as far as having the two different names to go by, like, that's been a thing for years where we were just separating our content by, target audience. Not everybody who's into the furry art is going to want to listen to the mashups and vice versa.
Yeah.
But in April now, so I guess it's been about 6-7 months-ish. We discovered that that we have dissociative identity disorder. And I keep saying we, and this is all going to be new information to a lot of people, except for like the folks in my Discord. But for those who aren't familiar, dissociative identity disorder used to be mislabeled as multiple personality disorder. It's understood better now. It is essentially a form of complex PTSD that's developed in childhood and stops your sense of identity from coalescing into, one solid unit through puberty. So, due to a lot of childhood trauma, essentially I got in the habit of dissociating to, deal with different people and escape different things. And all those little separate pockets of memory kind of grew up to be different people, but we were all still trying to be the same person, so we didn't know what was going on. We just thought we had gaps in our memory and out of character actions at times and things like that. But it turns out that we are actually 5 different people in one body, and Cosmic Latte is one of us, and Rayne Blanc is another. I'm Rayne speaking now. If you hear my voice go deeper, then it's probably going to be Cosmo talking. He tends to get kind of monotone and really fry his voice because he's got serious social anxiety, which is why I'm probably going to be the one talking more than him, even though this is more about him. And if my voice goes really low and sounds more confident, you're probably hearing the protector of the system, Tony, who is also a musician. He writes original, like, hard rock and metal, although we haven't had a chance to record any of that. And then the other 2 are children, and we won't really be talking about them as much. But, yeah. Cosmic Latte, Rayne Blanc, 2 different people that happen to share a body, so that's been an interesting discovery to go through.
Yeah, certainly. I did want to kind of. I guess we've gotten that, part of the discussion out of the way, but I did want to ask, for the purposes of this interview, what we're more going to be talking about. As a creative, what is the Cosmic Latte identity around the content creation scene, I suppose?
Well, as far as like content goes, Cosmic Latte is where we put our mashups, our musical memes, and like music production in general. He's really into graphic design, so he does all his own logos and album art and sometimes custom stuff for the videos. He actually helps me out a lot on the art side. If we have more complex drawings where we're doing like lighting and shading and full rendering and textures and stuff like that, that's his wheelhouse. He loves hopping in and taking over there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the name Cosmic Latte, it's a lot of people will probably recognize it for an article some years back that had come out about some researchers taking all like photos of every inch of the recorded universe and averaging out the colors in it to determine what the color of the universe would be. And then they had a contest in a magazine for people to submit names for this color, which ended up being a really pale shade of beige. And somebody submitted Cosmic Latte, so they adopted that as the name of the color of the universe. And we found that right about the time we were really getting into My Little Pony, and like being more active with creating OCs and drawing and engaging with the community more. And so we saw an article about Cosmic Latte and we were like, that sounds like a pony name. And so we drew a pony with Cosmic Latte colored fur and like purple hair with kind of stars and a spacey kind of look to it. Named him Cosmic Latte, started using him as kind of a self-insert in silly little comics and stuff. And then when we discovered Twitch, we signed up as Cosmic Latte Pony, and that name just kind of stuck when we started making content. The first thing that we did was collaborating with BandyPat on Through the Tables of Memes, and that exploded immediately. So,
I kind of wanted to, like, just, because I've shared with you the very expansive list of topics. By the way, your list, at least so far, is the longest list out of any of the guests on Winter Talk so far. Whereas I mentioned this in the Winter Talks episode with my buddy Rayne yesterday. His page took up, I guess, a quarter of the page on Samsung Notes, where I originally wrote down all of this stuff. Yours took the whole page in Samsung Notes. So, which really tells people how excited I was, because I went back, as you kind of mentioned before we started this, I was a bit thorough with everything, in terms of just going back and looking at what you all have done over the course of content creation as it's gone. So I'm real, like, first of all, I'm just really excited to have you all on, because this is a really exciting opportunity for me. So, number one, thank you very much
thank you so
for
much.
doing this.
Like I was saying before we started recording, I was really impressed with how deep you dug to find topics for this, and in a way grateful, I guess. Like, maybe this makes us sound kind of vain or whatever, but we've been doing this for years and nobody has ever interviewed us, so we've got so much to talk about. There's so much history to everything and a lot of behind the scenes info that most people aren't going to know because if it's ever even been discussed, it's been like just passing mentions in conversations all over Twitch, Discord, Twitter, wherever, so I'm really excited to be able to talk about all this stuff in one go.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into the first real topic on our board here, or on my expansive list, which was, I guess we could call it the pre-cosmic era of content in the dubstep remixes sphere of things.
Yeah, before discovering the Cosmic Latte article and making that character, we had been kind of involved in the brony music scene for a few years at that point under the name Phonic Boom. And that was, back then, life was simpler. We had a lot more free time and we could do original music and remixes and stuff like that. And that was something that we had always wanted to. Our dad introduced us to FL Studio. I think back then it was like Fruity Loops version 6 when we were 10 years old, and
Fruity Loops,
and paid
always
for
the go-to.
Piano lessons. So we were taking piano lessons for about 2 years, and we found that practicing to perform on an instrument was tedious and not getting to the root of what we really wanted to do, which was composing, recording, producing. We don't even know what we would do if our original music ever actually blew up, because stage fright and just not wanting to have to practice and perform.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
I understand that bit.
But we grew up listening to Linkin Park, Breaking Benjamin, Evanescence, hard rock, and that was what we always wanted to do, but we couldn't play guitar to save our lives. MIDI guitars sound like shit. We didn't really have the connections to network with other musicians, stuff like that, so we just, for the longest time, were just making weird electronic music that wasn't really that polished and not necessarily something anyone would go out of their way to listen to. And then Skrillex happened, and suddenly bedroom producers had this style of music that they could lean into that had that abrasive energy of rock and metal, but more of a groove to it and a lot more emphasis on what kind of weird sounds you could make and throw in there, just experimenting. And so that became a great outlet for Cosmo back when he went by Phonic Boom, and we actually managed to get a little bit of popularity through the brony music scene by sending our music into Equestria Daily for their weekly music roundups, and we had a lot of fun with that. A lot of original music, a few remixes from My Little Pony, a few remixes from mainstream bands, and it was never enough to like take off and become a full-time thing, but it was a lot of fun and really satisfying. And like, you've seen at the beginning of Cosmic Latte, we still had a little time for that. There's still a few songs that came out after we got into the Clone Hero scene. We did that trap remix of Through the Fire and Flames,
Yes.
and we were trying to keep that going, and life has just gradually become more difficult, and
Yeah.
when after a while it just got to a point where we really didn't have the time to dedicate to making original music and making it sound good completely from scratch and stuff. But then, a few years in, mashups started becoming kind of popular with people like charting Neil Cicerega and DJ Cummerbund and William Moranci, stuff like that, for Clone Hero, and that was something where we could continue to be making music in a way that was less effort but still just as satisfying.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've kind of rambled a bit and skipped over some of my
No,
notes here.
that's definitely okay.
Um,
The subtitle is the Winter Talks yapping chair, so just yap 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 all we want. It's okay if we skip over a few things or go on rambles and tangents. That's kind of what we do. So
yeah. So backpedaling a little bit to before the Cosmic Latte era again. I jumped ahead quite a few years, honestly, there, but, so,
yeah,
I was a kid, my dad introduced me to production, and, got me learning piano and stuff, and, he also, at the time, was running a pretty popular web forum, called the Mix It Challenge.
okay,
And it was really cool how it was set up. At the first week of each month, he had actually lifted this from a website that had run the same challenge for years, but ended up like redoing the whole website and just removed that section entirely. So there was a whole community of people that kind of rallied around my dad when he started his own website for it. But the Mix It Challenge, the first week of each month, users would submit samples, just whatever, copyright free, obviously, but sound samples, little melodies they had recorded, or just noises, whatever, any kind of sound that they wanted to send in. And then once that week was up, those samples would be compiled into a pack that would be released to the community, and then they had the rest of the month to make a song using only those samples. And,
interesting.
Yeah, so it really was a very fun way to kind of screw around as a music producer, and you'd end up coming up with stuff that you might not necessarily write on your own because you've maybe you're inspired by a certain sound in the pack, or there's a melody that you can build off of, or something. And so the results were always really interesting. Some of the producers in there were absolutely incredible. You wouldn't believe, like, knowing what the source material is and what they came up with, that was even possible. And so that was kind of how I cut my teeth as a producer. And like that taught me a lot more about the technical side of production, which I think is why I kind of fell off of piano and wanting to perform, because I was just having so much
Yeah.
more fun just composing and producing.
Yeah.
And frankly, stuff like that with sample manipulation, you can't do that live. Like, there's a certain degree to which you can if you set it up right, but a lot of the kind of stuff that I enjoyed doing with the samples, chopping them up, running them through crazy effects and automations and stuff like that, you just can't do that live.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even for me doing mostly covers, I'm getting into original music as of more recently, as my community knows that I've written lyrics for an original album. I've had that written for about 2 years now, and I'm finally getting instrumental work done with a friend of mine, and I love just the production side of things. I'm not great with instrumental production, but the little things you can do with different frequencies, different types of filters, it's really, really fun stuff.
Yeah.
And I definitely understand the thought process of, well, I don't want to perform. That takes too much work.
Right.
And just wanting to be in that realm of just, I can manipulate literally everything into a totally different soundscape.
Yeah.
And yeah, I share that same thought process. So
It's really exciting once you get into the weeds and you know go like beyond just what is expected in music and start playing with other kinds of sounds and figuring out what you can
Yeah.
get out of it. Like one of my favorite songs that we've done actually was for a Mix It challenge. Like right after we had discovered dubstep and started getting into that, we made this kind of chill dubstep track where we had some good bass samples to work with and like an electric piano chord progression somebody had sent in, and then someone had put in just like a 3-minute recording of a river running, just like gentle water noise. And we used a peak controller on the drum track to control the volume of that river sample, so the drums were splashing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. That song is on our YouTube channel. It's called Pensive.
Okay.
Got Fluttershy in the thumbnail because we were down bad for the ponies by that point. But yeah, it's just a lot of fun playing with sound design
Yeah,
and stuff like
absolutely.
that. So
So, yeah,
going
going
forward
from
in-
the...
what?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say going forward in our history with music and stuff like that. We also had dabbled in mashups a little bit when we were still like a teenager, because you had, I think what kicked it off initially was Linkin Park and Jay-Z coming out with Collision Course in 2004. We were 12
Yeah.
at that point, thought that was really cool, and then mashups became kind of a scene for a few years there. You had like Korn and Dem Franchise Boys doing Coming Undone with It in '06, and then I think the first mashups we ever made were in '08. We had, by that point you had like Rock Band and Guitar Hero, so there were stems available to a lot of stuff, plus you had your hip-hop instrumentals and acapellas all over the place.
Yeah.
And so we did some mashups of a few different songs from Linkin Park, Eminem. We did a mashup of Linkin Park's One Step Closer with Korn's Coming Undone that was really great conceptually, but really bad on the technical side because the remix pack that Korn released for Coming Undone was a bunch of loops that were not cut on the grid. So so the timing was off between the loops, and it wasn't like full length, song stems. I was having to recreate sections of the song and try to sync them up, and it didn't turn out very well, but that is an idea
that
I might
definitely
like
would
to
put a damper on the creativity
revisit
side
at some
of things.
point. And then like the other mashups we made back then, we had done our best with what we had, but like some of the songs we used, stems didn't exist, so we had to kind of DIY it, and it sounded like shit. And but the interest was definitely there, just the resources weren't. So we kind of put that down for a while, and then a couple years later, the dubstep takeover happened, and that's when Phonic Boom came into being. And also around that same time, I want to say starting in like 08, 09, Tony had been writing lyrics and song ideas for a rock album, and a lot of those lyrics and some demos and stuff are still in our phone. The songs have been bouncing around our head, fully polished for years and years and years, and we've just never had the time or the resources to make it happen. That album was, like, writing-wise, was completed in 2015.
Okay.
So that's something, if life would slow down and give us a break, we'd love to go back to and actually make that a reality at some point.
Absolutely.
And like at this point, it's really just a matter of time, because through the clone hero scene and whatnot, we do have those connections now to be able to, call up a guitarist friend and say, hey, can you record some stuff from me?
Absolutely.
We know several really talented musicians who all would be happy to work with us if we could just make the time. And then I guess the last thing in the timeline, really, before we move on to the Clone Hero era, would be that actually, I guess it was during a bit. I think it was right around the same time that we discovered Twitch that the Mix-It Challenge that my dad had been running, he actually ended up closing that website a couple years prior because there just wasn't enough activity anymore. People got older, got busy, new people weren't really coming in, but I had a bit of a foothold in the brony community at this point, and had discovered Discord as well, and I started a Discord server to reboot the Mix-It Challenge, and invited a bunch of my brony music friends, and told them to invite anyone and everyone, and we had a good run with that for a couple of years, kind of alongside the beginning of my presence in the Clone Hero community with like the original meme tracks and stuff before I got into mashups.
Yeah. Um, I was I didn't do it, but when you said, and I discovered Discord, and given we were on the topic of you being in the MLP community at the time, I was very hesitant to say, and were you howling at the moon or sleeping in the middle of a summer afternoon? Yeah. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. Decent, actually, like, kind of a banger song, by the way. Just gonna throw that out there.
It is.
If y'all haven't listened to the song Discord, it's actually kind of ridiculously good. It was an earworm for me for a good year and a half or so. It was all I would listen to.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And, like, everyone knows the Living Tombstone remix, but if you listen to the original Eurobeat version as well, fucking banger. Odyssey
Absolutely
is amazing. Like, I don't even listen to Eurobeat, and I listen to Odyssey.
Yeah. And if anyone wants to expand outside of the Living Tombstone version, CG5, the independent artist, and DA Games, along with Rashadi B, made a semi-rock rendition of it.
That's
and
awesome.
It's actually really, really good.
I'll have to look that up. I love Rashad.
Yeah. And Will from DA Games, he's a wonderful guy. I know him. I was in the DA community for a very long time, and I can really say that Will's voice really, really works with that song. Like, he's actually so good with it. So for if and when you eventually listen to that, be prepared to enjoy yourself, because it's really good stuff.
Cool. Definitely will check that out.
Yeah. So we've covered the pre-cosmic era, as we'll call it. Let's go back a little bit ahead of that to a time that was admittedly still much simpler, to a time where tables and memes were arising.
Alright, so, like, the catalyst for a lot of this, like, my getting deeper into the Brony fandom and drawing more, and discovering Twitch, Discord, Clone Hero, all of that, happened when I got a job at a DuPont factory. And one of the guys on my shift was a Brony artist as well. And, like, we hadn't gone out of our way to talk to each other or anything, but I had mentioned that to the foreman, and he went and told Tom. And then, Tom and I met up at lunch and got to know each other. So he introduced me to Discord and Twitch. Actually, no, not Twitch. I found that on YouTube a little bit later. But he got me drawing more. He got me back into, like, making music and stuff. More involved. I didn't even have a PC at the time. I was actually doing it on an Android tablet. But,
really? Okay.
Yeah, and just drawing on paper, and then, like, taking photos of my drawings and extracting the line art and coloring them digitally from there. But,
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, gotta do what you gotta do with that one.
So I was more active creatively, I was more active online, and one day I just stumbled upon this video of Jason Paradise playing the Helvians meme remix of Down with the Sickness, and I loved it. I thought it was the funniest shit I had ever seen, and I dug into Jason's channel and there were a few more meme tracks like that from various different people, and then there was Bandy Pat, who was pretty new in the scene at the time, but had been coming out with meme tracks pretty fast. He had, Tenacious D's Tribute, Aerials by System of a Down. He had done his own version of BYOB, Nickelback's Animals.
Yes.
And I believe around the time of the release of Animals was when I started cooking up my own ideas for Through the Fire and Flames. And I wanted to just, take a whack at it myself and submit that. I had actually been into Guitar Hero Customs charting years and years before, back when Frets on Fire was the only game in town.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
so I was really excited to be able to get back into the Guitar Hero scene that way. Really enjoyed Jason's videos and the meme charts that he was reacting to and stuff like that. But I didn't have enough for Through the Fire and Flames to keep it interesting the whole song. There were some parts that I just had no idea what to do with. So I messaged Bandy Pat asking if they'd be interested in collaborating on Through the Fire and Flames, and it just so happened that they were also taking notes on Through the Fire and Flames at that same time, and in the same position as me, where they had some good ideas, but not enough for the full 7 minutes. So we compared notes, found that, a lot of each other's jokes were just filling the spaces that we had in our own. There were only a few places that we had to kind of pick, which of the two of us had the funnier idea. The whole thing ended up coming together in 2 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was that quick.
Yeah. We had each been working on ideas separately for a couple of weeks at that point, but once we put it together, it just came together so fast. And
yeah, for sure.
So we dropped Through the Tables and Memes right before Christmas. Jason played it, I believe, the day after Christmas on stream, and then on the 27th it went live on YouTube and blew the fuck up.
Yes.
Nobody was expecting that to become Jason's biggest video by far, out of nowhere, but it was all over the place. You had other Clone Hero players doing their reactions and posting. You had people charting it for other rhythm games entirely. It was massive.
Yeah.
And we could talk forever just on that first era, but Bandy and I did do a video around the new year this year called Two Dudes, One Brain Cell, where it's kind of a retrospective on that era and a little bit of talk about our plans for the future.
Yeah. I did end up watching that, and that was the reveal of Through the Tables 2. Is that still in production? Are we still just waiting for a release date on that? Or
it's kind of still on the back burner, because it's a pretty ambitious project video-wise, and as we revealed in the teaser, we do have Herman Lee on board to contribute to it, the lead guitarist of Dragon Force. But Dragon Force has been really, really busy the last couple of years. They've been touring and putting out new albums and collabs, and even video game collabs. They did a song for Beat Saber. They did a song for some racing game I can't remember the name of right now.
And I mean, even
they've-
this year, they literally just put out the ninth studio album, which with Warp Speed Warriors.
Yeah, so
So
yeah, they've been super busy, and it's just been hard to, pin Herman down long enough to record his part.
yeah,
But also, that just kind of hasn't been a high priority because there's a lot of video work we have to do to, because it's a mod chart, and
Okay.
and a much more complex mod chart than any that I've done in the past. So lots of moving pieces, lots of little bits that we have to create and record and edit, and life just hasn't given us that time to really sink into that.
Yeah.
But it's not dead. We do want to finish it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think when the April Fool's announcement teaser went out, I think it really just got everyone thinking like, oh, this is a thing now. Like
Yeah.
y'all weren't kidding.
I think a lot of people missed that one actually, because we never got a streamer's reaction to it, and that's been a lot of what drives engagement on our channels. But we did put out the April Fool's version where we had advertised it as the full version, but it just went a little further than the Two Dudes teaser, and then cut off, and just kind of had this ominous noise and some of the graphics we had been working on floating in the back and stuff. And at that point we had been actively working on it a bit and we're hoping to have it out soon, but then things just didn't go that way. We ended up meeting up in person for the first time to go see the solar eclipse in April, and the plan had been to go see the eclipse, record some goofy moments, and we recorded a bunch of stuff. We recorded the eclipse. We were working on a song about the eclipse, and trying to put together some other covers, parodies, and originals to have an EP to debut as the Coat Tablers the day of the eclipse, but we didn't anticipate the traffic being so bad. The eclipse was at about 2 p.m., I think, and we got there with just enough time to set up and record and everything, but we had intended to, go straight back to Bandy's place and record the song about the eclipse and try to slap together this vlog that we had been working on, and maybe a longer teaser of tables and memes. But the traffic coming back from the eclipse was so bad that we didn't get home until almost midnight.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And then, so we didn't really have the time we had anticipated to work on any of that stuff, and I had planned on going back home the day after initially, but then we were having car problems, so we were afraid to try and make a 10-hour drive on bald tires and a faulty alternator, and ended up staying there. Like, the whole situation was a clusterfuck. It was also the eclipse was a week before we were supposed to be moving into a new apartment. So
Yeah.
we had some money saved back from the tax return that was supposed to help smooth the transition into the new apartment, because I was going to have a lot of work to do where I wouldn't be able to work on like art and music and stuff and keep my income flowing. So, that money we had socked back was supposed to float me for a couple of months, and we ended up spending it all on hotels and shit, and staying in New York for a week until, it was the day before we were supposed to sign the lease, and we were still stuck in New York and hadn't been able to find, be able to take care of the car in a way we could afford, so we just said fuck it and drove home.
Yeah.
And that drive home overnight and just being like exhausted, we hadn't been sleeping well and stuff, we was actually when we discovered that we had DID. We were on that drive home and just really stressed out and strung out, and kind of arguing with our spouse on the drive home, just eating each other alive because we had nowhere else to direct it, and and just kind of snapped. Had a traumatic flashback to something that we didn't know about at all, and it overwhelmed the 3 adults in the system, who had been kind of operating as one for years and years, and one of the child alters came forward and just kind of had this immediate clarity, understood, what was going on with us mentally, could see that what we thought was one person up front was actually 3 that had been, taking turns on our adult life and everything. And it was actually because of our furry art that we were able to figure out our system so fast, because we scrolled through our OCs and just kind of went, oh hey, that's me.
Yeah.
And then, took our names from our characters, or in Tony's case, the album that he had written, Tony Porcher was the alias that we had come up with for that music, which the origin of that was during like the brony phase. A lot of times we would go to the store for whatever, and it just became kind of a ritual to go to the toy aisle and look at the new pony merch. And one day we were at Walmart, and our spouse had said, we were headed in the general direction of the toy aisle, and I wasn't even going to say anything, but then they were like, I know what time it is. I have to endure the pony torture. Or she wanted to say pony torture, but she slipped and said Tony Porcher. And I was like, that sounds like a believable name. Maybe that can be our stage name for original music, or for rock music.
Yeah.
Because we already had Phonic Boom for electronic stuff at that point, but it was like, that's not, if we start recording this rock stuff, that's not necessarily going to resonate with the same crowd. But, when we discovered our system, I identified with our dear character, Rayne, because she's, like, the artist out of us, and then,
Yeah.
you know, Cosmo, who was like the host of the system, he identified most with the character of Cosmic Latte, largely because of like the comics that we had drawn at our factory job, and that being kind of a self-insert there, and also because he
Yeah.
was the one with the music production chops, and
Hmm.
and then like I said, we named Tony after Tony Porter since we realized that was his project because it was a lot of like introspective lyrics and him kind of putting his pain on the paper and stuff. Um, and then the the one child alter who had come out and helped kind of hold it together when we initially snapped. We named after a different character that we were kind of workshopping for a comic idea, but haven't really done anything with or actually drawn yet. And the fifth alter, the other child, it was actually his flashback, and then he hid away. Just how DID works, in order to protect the functionality of the body as a whole, the hardest things to face get tucked away and kind of go
Yeah.
into hiding. So we didn't end up seeing him for another few months, but managed to coax him forward, get a little more information about that trauma, reassure him that, life wasn't like that, and, things would be good and peaceful now. And so now all five of us live pretty harmoniously, take turns just kind of living our life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
That
anyway, that was quite a tangent.
it's okay again.
but
And
yeah, it all
I
kind of ties together as far as what our content creation has been like and why we haven't been more productive.
mhm. I really do want to um, definitely say thank you for being able to share that aspect, because I know me as a creator, I personally wouldn't be able to share that kind of in-depth detail with my audience. I really wouldn't. So I really commend that you're being as, open and honest as you can be about everything that has led up to now.
Yeah.
And, kind of, I guess it's really refreshing to see more honesty as different creators come and go. Um, I mean, I've definitely tried to be, but I'll admit that there are some times where I could have been a little bit better. So, hearing the story that you all have it's heartwarming to know that. I mean, even though there's so much going on, and I wouldn't doubt that there's still a lot to work through. I'm really happy that you all have been able to at least coexist as you have. Um,
Yeah. I know from a lot of the research that we've done on DID, like, we are incredibly lucky to be such a cohesive and functional system. A lot of systems have alters that all they know is pain. I mean, and that's kind of how it was with Tony for a long time, actually. Before we discovered we were even a system, we were working on his baggage. And we'll get into that more when we get further ahead in the timeline. We kind of jumped ahead to the eclipse here because of your question.
Yeah.
But
It's okay.
but our latest album was kind of exploring our past and digging into our feelings and like what kind of music resonated with us at the hardest times in our lives and things like that. So he's doing a lot better than he was, but a lot of systems don't necessarily have that, and they'll have alters who are always fighting and self-sabotaging and stuff like that, and a lot more difficulty communicating between alters because the very nature of DID is, that's supposed to be walled off.
Yeah.
But we had solid communication literally within minutes of that flashback, because we were able to go through our characters and get a clear idea of who each of us were and be able to see each other more clearly in our head, but and as far as like being open with it, we've always been very open and honest about stuff like that, and I know it's hard for a lot of people to talk about, but for us, it's hard not to talk about a lot of the time. Like, did you see when they were going around a couple of months ago, those AIs that would like read your Twitter and then roast you?
Yeah.
The one for my main account, Rayne Blanc, actually I did it on both Rayne Blanc and Albino Reindeer, which is my NSFW account, and both times the AI was like, your Twitter is a masterclass in oversharing.
Yeah.
Because, I tell it like it is. If, there's some reason that I haven't been in good spirits or haven't been able to release new stuff lately, or haven't been keeping up with our commissions or whatever, I'm right out and open with it. I've been very fortunate to have a lot of followers on that side who are really patient about their commissions, and several who are pretty generous with just donating when life is too hard and I really can't keep up with work.
Yeah.
So that I think that openness is really what has kept my family in a home all these years. Because we've been
definitely.
through a lot. But back on topic.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Again, yapping chair.
Yeah. When Through the Tables and Memes blew up, that was a really exciting time for us, and we were really inspired to keep working with Bandy Pat. The Through the Tables and Memes kind of was the last nail in the coffin for the table sample specifically, because Through the Tables was just completely inescapable. A lot of people were already sick of the table meme before that, and at that point, like that, it peaked. There was no doing better with that at that time. So the next thing that Bandy and I did together was new meme version of BYOB, which the original lyrics have the word tablecloth in, and we deliberately censored that out.
Yeah.
To, you know, be like, no more tables. The table is dead. There can be no tables. And that one went over really well, and then we got together with Fruce77, who had done stuff like Bring Meme to Life and Carry On Wayward Meme, or Carry On Wayward Sus was what that one was called.
Yeah.
And collaborated with him on Metallica's One, which we called Boner.
Yep.
And
I think that I think Boner actually has one of my favorite streamer reactions ever, with Alec at the very beginning, just laughing his ass off with
just as soon as he heard the Halo samples. Yeah.
Yeah. Before the song even technically started, just he was dead.
Yeah. That definitely stands as one of my favorite reactions too, just because, and like especially with it being Alec, because he was one of the ones that was not so into the meme charts.
Yeah, he was very done with it at that point. Yeah. So to see him with that reaction, I imagine that was such a joy to see.
To just destroy him in like 5 seconds was so great. And I didn't think I'd ever be able to recapture that, but then I got the same thing where he had to pause and just laugh his ass off at the beginning of SBPT.
Yeah.
The mashup I did with the WAP instrumental and several of the like original internet memes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Boner was a lot of fun, and when we were done with that, the three of us started trying to get together with some of the other people in the community who had popped up that year, trying to do their own meme charts, and we started what we called the meme team, where I think there were like 7 of us at one point, and trying to, you know, lift up these newer guys and help them polish their material and stuff like that, and you know, get some attention, and tried to collaborate with them on a few meme songs. But like by that point, I think just for one thing, I hate to say this and I'm not going to name any names, but like the quality just wasn't really on the same level with a lot of the newer guys, and it just kind of helped to really bury the format entirely. Like,
yeah,
you know, even,
that makes sense.
Even Jason was sick of it at that point. So we started doing other stuff. Bandy started writing original music, and I started trying to come up with other ways to continue doing like Clone Hero meme charts without it being the like YouTube poop kind of style that we had been doing.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I came up with after that was right around the time I think Alec had posted his reaction to Basket Flies by DJ Cummerbund, and kind of brought mashups into the Clone Hero scene a bit. So I had ideas brewing for mashups and was kind of writing down stuff like that. And then one night, at this point I had a job working overnight, scrubbing the floors at a few different grocery stores. So it was a lot of time where I was just doing, like mindlessly pushing around this floor scrubber with my mind completely free to roam. I got deeper into Twitch and following and watching more streamers more actively, and one night while I was at work, my train of thought just kind of, like, you ever have a song stuck in your head and then it just kind of turns into something else?
Oh, absolutely.
I had a stream of consciousness that that I had to write down immediately as soon as it was over, because Symphony of Distraction is, my meme chart is almost exactly what I heard in my head, beginning to end, in just one straight stream of thought.
Oh, wow.
Like, the only thing that was forced after the fact was the ending, where I just cut it off with the Mario death noise, because that was the point at which I had run out of ideas and had something else pop into my head instead. But, like, everything there, as good as all the mashups were, and as funny as some of the transitions are and stuff, that was all one stream of thought that happened in real time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that turned out really well, and was a big hit, and was, refreshing to have, like, a different kind of meme chart. And then you started seeing, more new takes on it pop up, like the extended edition of Sudden Death, or Master of Puppets, but it gets faster, stuff like that.
Yes.
And then
I believe Master of Puppets, but it's still faster, is the most popular video on Jason's channel.
It is.
I want to say
it is now. At the time, it was, a good drop for his channel, but then it was when Master of Puppets was used in a climactic scene in Stranger Things. That really blew up, and that was only a couple years ago.
I want to say before then it was one of the woe memes, or it was Tables.
I'm not entirely sure. I think Tables and Memes stayed as his top video for a long, long time, but I do want to say that one of the woe memes did overtake it at one point. I'm not really sure.
I don't know.
I don't pay that much attention to the numbers, honestly.
Yeah.
Another fun fact about Symphony of Distraction. I still didn't have a PC at the point when I had made that, and so I put that together, the audio, on that Android tablet that I had at the time, and had to do the chart using really old charting software. This app called Feedback, that was like how everybody originally did, like, the PS2 customs and stuff like that. But they stopped developing that years ago, so it's lacking a lot of features, but they did have a PSP port of it back when, like, PSP homebrew was all the rage. So I got a PSP emulator on my phone and ran the PSP version of Feedback on that, And it was a
Oh
really
wow.
bad port, honestly. Like, the control scheme was terrible. You'd have to manually edit the text files to change anything, and there just weren't enough buttons on the PSP to do all of the functions that you needed. So I had two different copies of feedback with different control schemes, so that I could make one pass with like the tempo markers and the raw notes, and then I had to open that chart file in the other copy of feedback with a different control scheme so that I could put in the star power and like event markers that I had to go in and text edit into the note flags for tap notes and forced hobos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was rough.
I get you. I get you.
But that one went over pretty well, and then I ended up getting a laptop a little while after that, and finally being able to actually make music and charts and stuff in, a less hostile environment. And
Yeah, definitely.
and about that time, Lord Mouse had started with the Quality of SoundCloud series, where he was taking these short mashups and like YTP type stuff, and just making anthologies of them, and those were really popular. And I came up with the idea for the Quality of Jordan, where I took the Buckethead song Jordan and basically did sound clowns of every section of the song until I could string it together into the whole song. And and that was a huge hit. I think Asai had said it was his favorite meme chart I had ever done. And just the nature of that was already kind of delving more into mashups, and I realized that with life getting harder and free time becoming less, that mashups would be a good way to continue creating and kind of stay relevant without as much time put in. So started playing around with full-length mashups. The first one that I did under the name Cosmic Latte was His Dick Is Gone, which was Crab Rave and Unicorn by Ty and Lashuk, which, like, that is ancient history in the Clone Hero scene. That was back when, Clone Hero still wasn't out yet, and Jason was doing GH3 customs, and Helvian had charted this song Unicorn, which is not like a meme song or a remix of anything. It is actually an original song where they just did this ridiculous voiceover about a pirate eating a poison apple and his dick fell off.
I've actually listened to that song multiple times, and I think it's pretty good.
It is.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely bonkers, but it's fun. It's a good time.
Yeah, and so Crab Rave was really popular at that time, and I noticed one day that, musically, the drops lined up really well in a lot of ways between Crab Rave and Unicorn, so I mashed them up, and it just made it all the funnier because of the community captions thing that had gone down with Crab Rave, and she took the kids and shit like that. I was like, his dick fell off. That's it falls right into that kind of thing. And then
Absolutely.
and then I started getting into like more serious mashups. I had already been listening to DJ Cummerbund for a while, and then William Morancy started getting pretty big with his mashups where he would say, this song, but it's that song for the titles. And that gave me the idea, again, more of a meme than anything, but I took 3 different songs that were all titled Closer and made Closer, but it's closer, but it's closer.
Yeah, which was Closer cubed.
Yes. And then after that was when I did my first, serious mashup, that wasn't meant to be funny in any way, but just, a banger, and that was The Next Eastwood.
Yes. Wait, I still think that is one of your best mashups, unironically.
Absolutely. I'm really proud of that one.
Yeah, I still have the album downloaded on my phone, and I listen to that song in particular pretty often.
I appreciate that.
So, yeah.
And then after that we did The Bad Guy Made Me Wait, which was Billie Eilish's Bad Guy, Taylor Swift's Look What You Made Me Do, and Ying Yang Twins' Wait, the Whisper song. I thought would all go great together because they're all soft-spoken lyrics and kind of have this, sinister feeling to them. And that one turned out amazing. And then right about that time was when Neil Cicerega came out with his latest mashup album, Mouth Dreams, and that blew me away. I had heard some of his previous mashup stuff, but never really got that deep into it or listened to the albums all the way through. But Mouth Dreams was such a polished concept album. It just never occurred to me that you could do that with mashups and have it all flow together and feel like this grand experience that told a whole story in the way that, a prog metal album would or something, So that was what really got the gears turning as far as, let's make some more mashups and let's think about how they flow together. So I kind of springboarded off of Mouth Dreams with the entire album concept and made the intro track Wake based on the idea of what if you didn't wake up at the end of Mouth Dreams? It ends with Serge from System of a Down, yelling, "Wake up, wake up, wake up." And so I took that and a bit of Evanescence, Bring Me to Life, and put it over the intro to Linkin Park's remix album Reanimation, and it was the perfect vibe for the start of this album, and then a lot of the rest of it was just kind of whatever mashup ideas I had coming together and then figuring out an order that flowed well for them. So that album is still a little choppy as far as cohesion goes, but definitely had a lot of good tracks on it that we're really proud of. Like
Yeah.
we took Closer But It's Closer But It's Closer and added 2 more closers to it for the album version.
Yep. To make it to the power of 5.
Yeah. Alex video of the wrong version of Sicko Mode had blown up recently, as well
Yep.
as the furry copy pasta rap. So I combined those together to make OO Mode. Came up with like Bitch Spaghetti. I had listened to Bitch Lasagna and was like, with his voice stacked like that, recording doubles and stuff like that, like he sounds a lot like Eminem in this song. So so I put it over Lose Yourself, and
I was specifically curious about the track Bang Bang I'm Meringue because that is my most listened to track on that album. It's actually one of the most listened to songs I have on my phone. So I was just kind of going to ask, what was how long did that one specifically take to do from start to finish? Because I know the album itself was made over a long period of time, but that track in particular is just very awesome. So
yeah, that actually still, I think, is our favorite mashup that we've made.
like just in general?
Yeah. But sorry, Cosmo's trying to come forward to talk.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah, we're good. So that one, I think, was one of, if not the last song to actually be created for that album, but had been kind of brewing in bits and pieces, in sort of a similar process to how Symphony of Distraction came about, as far as, like, these were songs that kind of bled together in my mind.
Okay.
If I'd have one stuck in my head and just be like, oh, that kind of sounds similar to this too. Like the intro being Bangarang with Uptown Funk was its own separate idea that I wasn't sure where to go with, and then one day that train of thought just kind of, instead of hitting the Bangarang drop, suddenly it was Beep Beep I'm a Sheep, and I was like, wait a minute, that actually works really well. That goes hard. and then listening to the Beep Beep instrumental, I ended up coming up with September for that first verse, and then with the second verse I realized that the vocal line for Can't Stop the Feeling by Justin Timberlake is also very similar to September, so that worked well and kept it flowing as like a cohesive song. That's one thing I'd really like to focus on, and I'm sure you even noticed with like the Black Hole Revelations, even though that was a totally different kind of album, there's still the kind of energy of, if these weren't separate songs, this could be one song that made it on the radio.
Definitely.
And then when it came to the chorus for Bang Bang I'm a Ring, at first I wasn't sure what to do with it. I was, trying to think of other songs, and then it hit me that the bridge of Uptown Funk is the exact same rhythm for the vocals as Beep Beep I'm a Sheep. Uptown Funk you up, beep beep I'm a sheep. It's
Yep.
was exactly the same, so I was like, oh my fucking god, it's already there, and it ties it all together so well. So I ran that through a vocoder like they did with Beep Beep I'm a Sheep, and then added the clean version on top, where you start to hear Gabriel Brown sing in the original, and then just kind of stuck in the bangerang drops in the post choruses, and it all worked out really well. So I'm super proud of that one. That was a huge hit with, with the viewers and streamers and stuff.
Yeah, and I really liked the way that song made the shift into Black Star, which is another one of my favorite tracks from that album. I think it was really good.
Yeah, and that one is particularly interesting because, Neil had been doing the All-Star mashups for years and years at that point, and I felt like it was just kind of tired, like it got to a point where All-Star was being mashed with everything. Like, it became a whole meme everywhere that you could mash All-Star with anything, and chances are, if there was a song you liked, somebody had done an All-Star version. But I was listening to Blackout by Breathe Carolina one day, and just out of nowhere heard All-Star on top of it, and I was like, wait, that actually goes hard, that doesn't even sound memey. And I went and Googled, and nobody had ever done that combo before, so I was like, fuck it, I have an All-Star mashup now.
Yeah.
And I've heard from a lot of people that it's one of their favorite mashups that I've done, so definitely made the right call, going back on my promise to myself and doing that.
I mean, I think it's definitely one of the more unique ones on that album because it sounds like it's its own song.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that, I think more than others, I think that's one of the ones where there's so much that is the same between Blackout and All-Star that it's just you really can't distinguish where one starts and the other ends in terms of how the production mashes everything up.
Yeah, the structure worked out pretty well. I think I did have to cut out a couple of bars of the second verse or something, or I may have had to double the first verse. I don't remember for sure now, but structurally it just worked out really well, especially with the long bridge in Blackout, kind of lining up with the All-Star bridge, and then I did some additional production to just really tie it all together. I did a bit of auto-tune and distortion on the verse vocals to match what was done with the Blackout vocals, and and asked a bunch of people to record themselves singing the third verse so that I could make a crowd vocal out of that, where Blackout originally has crowd vocals. So that was a big part of the reason that I allowed myself to go ahead and make this All-Star mashup was because, I had ideas to go above and beyond just slapping an a cappella over an instrumental and calling it done.
Yeah, definitely.
And one other thing on that album that I wanted to talk about was Cold Fly. Um, Probably the least memey mashup that I had ever made up before this latest album, and kind of leaning back into the style that I was going for as a teenager, when you had like the Linkin Park and Jay-Z EP and stuff like that, where it was, more serious. It wasn't just contrasting songs for the sake of the juxtaposition, you know. So I had taken a couple of hard rock songs that I always loved, Change in the House of Flies and So Cold, and was putting them together, and like that idea initially just stemmed from the chorus being, the Deftones vocals over the Breaking Benjamin instrumental. I was like, oh, hey, that works really well. But there weren't any official stems out for Change in the House of Flies at that time, so I had to DIY the absolute shit out of that. I found a rip of the single CD for that song, and it had an instrumental version and like a version where the guitar was boosted a little louder, and a version where the the vocals were boosted a little louder, and at that time we had like the first wave of AI stem extraction that was pretty janky but kind of serviceable. Like, for example, that's why the vocal on Bitch Spaghetti sounds so bad, is because that was the best I could do with Bitch Lasagna using the AI extraction then. But using that, the different versions from the Deftones single, I was able to do what's called phase extraction. You invert the polarity of the instrumental of a song and sync it up with the full mix, and you can extract the vocals that way. It's not always perfect, but I was able to get a mostly clean vocal with a little bit of the drums still audible from the vocal boosted mix against the instrumental, and then I ran that through one of the AIs to get the drums out, and came out with an almost perfectly clean a cappella of Change. And then when I started putting it together, I realized that like the way the verses were done, the Breaking Benjamin verse would have a line at the beginning of the bar and then some space, and the Deftones song had some space at the beginning of the bar and then the vocal towards the end. So I was able to stick both vocals on there and just have them call and response with each other, which came out really cool. And then also had some of the lines in the chorus of Change where like some of the same words were said in the Breaking Benjamin vocals, so I made harmonies with Breaking Benjamin of the Change lyrics in places, and was really proud of that one. And then like flipped the instrumental over to Deftones after the solo, which I threw on a Nirvana solo that was similar enough to the Breaking Benjamin solo that it took a lot of people a minute to notice and figure out what it was.
Yeah, for a good while I didn't even know that it was a Nirvana solo.
Yeah.
So.
So, pretty proud of that one as well. But yeah, that album took a while to come together because it was initially just a few mashups I had done, and then trying to come up with new ideas and tie it all together.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that album, I started like taking notes down. Whenever I would get any mashup idea, I would just write it down. Good or bad, is this something that I can revisit later? And just kind of workshopping ideas for new mashups in a note in my phone. And life continued to get harder, free time continued to get more scarce, and I kind of developed this mindset of only the best of the best ideas need to have the time put into them to actually produce.
Yeah.
So the second album, Songs in the Color of the Universe, was almost entirely conceptualized from beginning to end before I produced any of it, except for
Wait,
couple of songs that I had
You
done.
mean Smart and Stupid?
Or did I say Tablecloth?
You
Yeah.
accidentally said Songs in the Color of the Universe.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
Brain go burr.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so live from the corner of Smart and Stupid. I had a couple of songs that I had done prior to putting the album together, just because they were like strokes of inspiration that I really wanted to run with, the Taylor Swift and 3 Days Grace one.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, the choruses of both of these songs are just so similar. It's almost like Taylor Swift just did a dubstep version of the I Hate Everything About You chorus. So I stuck that one together because it was funny more than anything. And let me see. Looking at my notes and can't remember the acronyms. Jeez.
It's okay. I mean, with Smart and Stupid, I think easily one of my favorite tracks is Segway Boulevard into I Gotta Love It, because Alec pointed this out in his reaction. The transition is just shameless. It's so out of pocket. It's so off the wall. It's so funny, but I love it.
It is, but I also made a point to be sure that musically it worked, and in order to do that,
definitely.
I had to take the last word of the Franz Ferdinand vocal and pitch it way up, so that it could make a more natural transition into the new chord. So it's smooth, but if you already know the original songs, it's like, wait, what?
Yeah. Won't be leaving here with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That album, Live from the Corner of Smart and Stupid, actually has SBBT.
Yes.
Which mentioned earlier as one of the ones that Alec just gave you quite a few props for.
Yeah. He absolutely died just right at the beginning of that, hearing Peanut Butter
Yeah.
Jelly Time over WAP.
Yeah.
And that was a fun one too. Like while I was writing down ideas for SBPT, I already had like that I wanted to take WAP and do old school memes on top of it with Soldier Boy being the chorus. And while I was kind of digging around looking for other stuff that I could add to it, I realized that the vocal rhythm of Peanut Butter Jelly Time is the same as the chorus of Soldier Boy. So,
Yeah.
and then I was like, you know what, that would be the perfect little loop in the background to replace the, there's some whores in this house line.
Yeah.
And then
that track is super enjoyable. I remember specifically again Alex's reaction to Easy Like a Tiger,
yeah,
because that song is wacky and ridiculous. But I think, like, in a really odd way, it's kind of beautiful. Like,
yeah.
it may be just plain silly for most of it, but there's a sense of beauty about that song. So
Yeah.
again, props for being able to handle that juxtaposition.
Yeah. One of my favorite comments on that actually was that somebody had said, "It's Eye of the Tiger, but you're retired."
Yeah.
Like reminiscing on the battle to get here.
Yeah. That tracks.
Yeah.
Thinking it was easy, like the battle. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, and that one was another, like, that was one of the ideas I had written down that I was like, oh my god, that's so silly, I have to do that just for the meme. But then when I was actually putting it together and playing around with the vocals and stuff, I had to pitch the Eye of the Tiger vocals way down to match the instrumental, and then did a little formant shifting to make it sound more natural, and when I did that, it ended up sounding just like Lionel Richie. So I was like, oh my god, I can use both vocals and it's gonna sound smooth.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was amazing. I was really happy with that, and I'm still very proud of
Easy
it.
like a tiger. Yeah. Always fun. I think, my personal favorite track on Smart and Stupid is the last track. I've been actually curious on how to pronounce it. Is it evac out? Is it evac out? Or...
I've always gone with Evac Out.
Okay. Yeah, but that song
main songs
is
are
so...
Evacuate the Dance Floor and Blackout, which, like, going into making this album, I had originally had the mindset of, like, I don't want to reuse any songs from the last one, but then, with Evac Out, like, that started out as just being Evacuate the Dance Floor and Blackout, which was like a years old idea just springing back to mind. Like, I had originally thought those songs would go really well together back when they were still new on the radio. And, and then one day I was listening to Evacuate the Dance Floor and noticed that the pre-chorus vocals were in the same rhythm as the Enter Sandman verse.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my god, that would be such a cool transition from one to the other, especially if I could somehow do the same harmonies from Evacuate the Dance Floor over top of the Metallica vocal, and originally I had tried doing that just by like pitch and formant shifting the Metallica vocal, and it sounded fucking awful. But I ended up going on Fiverr and finding a singer that I could afford, and had them do custom vocals. They're just, sing Enter Sandman in the style of Evacuate the Dance Floor, and put that all together. And the pieces just kind of all fell into place from there. The guitars worked really well with what I had going. I was able to smoothly switch back and forth between which of the songs was the vocal or the instrumental. Threw in the poker face synth during the bridge because Evacuate the Dance Floor does something similar there, and it came together to be I still think one of the most just technically impressive mashups I've ever heard.
Definitely.
Because of how smoothly everything fits together, and it's not just, one song all the way through. It's all three taking turns in different places and different roles throughout the song.
I think more than any other song, that is the clearest example of what a true mashup song is.
Yeah.
Because it's not just one song over another. It's so many elements of different songs taking precedent, and as you said, taking turns displaying what about those specific songs makes this whole song great.
Yeah. And so, like, in a lot of ways, to me, it feels like the same process as Bang Bang I'm a Rang, but polished to perfection.
Yeah, definitely. I remember I did reactions to both Smart and Stupid and Color of the Universe, but I have since deleted all the videos from back then. I wish I still had them so I could put them out for nowadays to kind of show where I did stuff back then.
Yeah,
but I remember, commenting. I was like, this sounds like the same kind of vibe as, Bang Bang I'm a Rang. Just it feels just done better.
Yeah.
So that is the talk about Color of the Universe and Smart and Stupid. Now, it's been quite a bit since then, and I want to say after Smart and Stupid, there was quite a bit of time away. So I kind of want to go into that and how that was for you all, because a lot of stuff happened before the start of the Cooking on Low era and the ending of Smart and Stupid. A lot of stuff happened in between that time, and I kind of want to delve into that if possible.
Right. This is Rayne again. A lot of just like real life stuff was getting in the way at that point. We had actually started working on Live from the Tablecloth conceptually, like, in our notes, the way we had done with Smart and Stupid, immediately after Smart and Stupid was released. Like, we were already coming up with ideas for new songs, some of which
Okay.
are still planned to be on the album exactly as they were conceptualized back then. But we just couldn't make time really to work on it. And a lot of those concepts, like some of it was new stuff that had just popped into our head right after, and some of it was ideas of, maybe 2 or 3 songs that we had that we thought might go well together, but hadn't really fully polished out into something we were sold on yet, and ended up revisiting and finalizing. And what it ended up being, because we were taking these notes and revising and polishing and combining separate ideas and stuff like that, is that that album, as it's written, is super ambitious. A lot of the mashups are just gonna take longer than to put together than stuff we've done in the past, and we just haven't had the time for it. We had cars break down and different stuff coming up in life, and mental health taking a dive, and trying to dig into that, and so it's been on the back burner for a long time, because conceptually it has been finished for a couple of years now, but I just haven't been able to put in the time to actually work on the songs. And like in the case of a couple of them, like I'm taking some of the instruments and making them play different stuff to make these mashups work, and that is going to be a lot of time and effort. And then beyond that, we also want to make sort of a mod chart out of it with custom note graphics, and like a stage with the horse character DJing and a light show and everything. All of which we know how to do. We have written down exactly what the plan is for that, and it's just too big of a project for us to sink into until such a time as we can actually justify sinking that much time into it.
I get you. Yeah. I mean, even like looking at the tracks from Cooking on Low, I knew that Tablecloth was just going to be a super ambitious project by just the sound of it alone. And now hearing all of these details, I definitely understand why it's not finished yet.
Yeah, and the way things are looking right now, it's probably still going to be a long time before that one's done. But with Cooking on Low, we had already put a few of the tracks together, and there are several of the less ambitious cuts from the album done and unreleased at this point. But like, while we were still conceptualizing the album and what it would be, eventually we were coming up with ideas that were so much better than what we already had made that we were just like, what, why don't we just cut a few of the less amazing tracks from the set and put out an EP, so that at least, the fans have something in the meantime. So, Lions After Love was the first mashup that we did after Smart and Stupid, and had intended to save for Tablecloth, but ended up releasing it as a single when Elton John announced that he was retiring from touring and did his last show in America.
Yeah.
And like, by that point, that one wasn't even a difficult decision to make. Like, that's a really good mashup, but it does not hold a candle to anything else that is planned for Tablecloth, in my opinion. Okay. So that was an easy cut. Dat Crank was one that was actually just like a burst of inspiration done in a couple of days when William Morancy started doing mashup competitions where he would like post a theme and everybody had a week to create a mashup based on that theme. And the very first theme was Soulja Boy. And and like as soon as I saw that post, my mind just spit out this drum and bass track that I hadn't even heard or thought about in years. And it was like one of the original Never Say Die free MP3s back when Zomboy was really big. But what is that song called now? Relapse. By, I don't remember who the original artist is, but the remix is by Shock One, and that just popped into my head, and with Soulja Boy over top of it, and it got to the drop and the chorus, and I was like, oh my god, this works so well.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and banged that one out and released it immediately so that I could submit it to the competition, and figured that would be a good one. Like, as hype as that one is, would be a good sort of teaser for what to expect from Live from the Tablecloth, as well as kind of a follow-up to SBPT, because in SBPT I had used a few lines from the original rap battle parody by Super Hot Fire, and then I found out after SBPT released and I had put Super Hot and Soulja Boy on the same track, people were talking in the comments about how Soulja Boy had actually done a rap battle video with Super Hot Fire, and I had no idea all these years, but that was the finale to Super Hot's channel. So I went and found that and put Soulja Boy's Comeback in the bridge of that mashup, and really loved how that turned out.
I did want to address the horse in the room, shall we say, about the one track that you put out during that time that wasn't on either Cooking on Low or Tablecloth related. That being a little number that made me laugh my ass off, and I believe it was the first time you interacted with me. That being the song of all time, or the beat of all time, rather.
That one came a little while after, like some months after I had dropped Cooking on Low, I think. Because that was about the time
I want to say it was before.
Was it?
because Cooking on Low hadn't dropped on at least on YouTube yet.
Okay. I don't know.
Because
maybe
I
I'm
was still
misremembering.
living.
That was
I
a
was
chaotic time
living
in my life.
in my house up north, and then I had moved. I believe I had moved to the shelter where I had stayed while I was first recording mashup reactions by the time that I had listened to Cooking on Low.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so with The Beat of All Time, that one was another one that was very much a product of its time. Like, you may have noticed by now, a running theme with a lot of my content is just that there's so much context in what else was going on at that time, in the clone hero scene and music in general. So that was when Fuser had gotten really popular and official support for the game was waning, but people had started figuring out how to do customs. And then you had Jason and Alex reactions to the Worst Beats Ever Created series by Distant Cry, and I just thought that format was brilliant because you have to actually be a really good musician to know how to violate all of the rules so badly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
There's definitely a difference between, hearing shitty beats that someone made in their bedroom with no music experience versus, the worst beats of all time being so expertly crafted to just make you go, what the fuck, at every turn.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that, and Distant Cry had released stems to a lot of his beats for use in Fuser customs, and that was, people were having a lot of fun with that because when taken apart into the stems like that, a lot of it was actually pretty usable for good sounding Fuser mixes, and the parts that weren't were just all the more hilarious for, being in those mashups.
Absolutely.
So from the ground up, The Beat of All Time was made to be a Fuser custom in the style of the Worst Beats Ever Created.
Okay.
And also makes reference to several songs that have been memes in the Clone Hero scene and beyond prior to that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, for example, I took the Purchase Your Tracks Today tag that Distant Cry uses and made it say Purchase Your Tables Today. And,
yeah.
Put in Soulja Boy and Thomas the Tank Engine and shit like that. Just piling in as much bullshit and meme samples and stuff as I could, while still trying to achieve that same effect of some of the stems being a little more unironically usable.
Yeah.
And so The Beat of All Time was the result of that. And the version you heard is an extended version that I made so that it could stand alone as its own song. But the way the Fuser version works, in Fuser you can flip songs between minor and major modes.
Yeah.
so you don't have like dissonance when you're combining minor and major songs. But the way that's handled in the files, since it doesn't always work to just, pitch shift the minor notes or whatever, is that the files actually have separate audio for the major and minor versions of all the tracks except for the drums. So I took advantage of that and made two entirely different beats for the major and minor versions. So the version you listen to has the minor version first and then the major version played when it loops back around.
Okay.
But if you're playing
I did not
that
catch that.
in game, it's going to be one half or the other, and if you flip modes during playback, the song completely changes.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of fun working on that.
Yeah, it was. I believe that was the first time I directly got to interact with you all. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that was the first time. It was either that or Dat Crank that I.
Yeah, that's what it was. You had reacted to Dat Crank before the beat of all time, and then went back to Cooking on Low after that came out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's talk some more about Cooking on Low, because I mean that collection is, in my opinion, like, in terms of the stuff that isn't Black Hole Revelations, because that I view that as its own separate thing, personally.
And
I don't
too,
like even
there's
like even though it's sorry
we just keep tripping over each other and then waiting for each other to speak. But I see what you're getting at there, because like we see it the same way. There's a certain vibe to the first couple of albums and the Cooking on Low EP where it's like, the point is hype. It's big reactions. It's funny juxtapositions, or songs unironically working together so well that you're just like, whoa. And that is a completely different energy from what we were pursuing with the Black Hole Revelations, being more of a mental health focused album, and more the focus was less on how the songs would go together musically and more how they go together emotionally.
Definitely.
But definitely a certain vibe to the first few albums in the Cooking on Low EP, and Tablecloth is going to be, I think, our magnum opus on that side of things. That is the same kind of mentality that went into Smart and Stupid, but as polished as it can possibly be, and with some of the most exciting ideas that we've ever had for it. There's really not even a lot of humor to be found on that album. Like, there's a couple of meme songs and samples that we've used here and there, but I expect there to be a lot less laughing and a lot more whoa when that one finally comes out.
Okay. But I mean, going back to Cooking on Low for a second, I was really impressed with the final track of that EP, Wicked Suck, as you entitled it.
That one was the hardest to cut from Tablecloth, because it really is up there with all of the rest of it, but that track was already done, and I didn't want to have to sit on it forever, and and it still was like, when we were looking at the track list and which songs were already done and what kind of reactions we expected from them and everything, that one I feel like might have been lost in the fold a little bit among the rest of Tablecloth, because of it being like on the same level and similar vibe to some of the other tracks, plus that it would be a great closer for Cooking on Low to give kind of an idea of what to really expect from it, since up to that point the rest of the EP was like, these were the ideas that weren't good enough for that album.
Yeah.
And also, like, that one kind of brings its own special flavor to it, for the Guitar Hero community in particular, because it's all, classic songs that everyone remembers Guitar Hero for, with the exception of No Rest for the Wicked, which really should have been in a Guitar Hero or Rock Band, and no one I've ever talked to about it can fathom why it wasn't, especially as big as it was when it came out.
I mean, it was in Borderlands, so do we really have anything to complain about?
I can't play it on plastic guitar.
But that song is very good. I especially love the switching of the pitching. Wow, that's an interesting phrase. With the verses in the chorus.
Chili Peppers changed the key in the chorus, and I didn't want it to sound weird, so I made it fit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think even though I might have a hard time kind of wording this, but I think even though Smart and Stupid and Color of the Universe, I think those have better individual moments. I think across the board, in terms of the main Cosmic Latte quote projects, I do think that Cooking on Low is easily the best project. Again, setting aside Black Hole, as that's kind of its own separate thing. You could almost put that under another whole artist label, and it would...
It's funny you say that, because we almost did. We thought about putting it under Tony Porcher instead. Because a lot of the feelings we were exploring on that came from him, and his memories and his struggles. But we ended up going with Cosmic Latte, partly because, like, that name already has weight to it, and but mostly because as we were putting the tracks together, we still kind of held on to the same Cosmic Latte mentality that, it's not good enough just to slap these songs together because they're meaningful. We also have to polish these into songs that sound like you would hear on the radio, songs that you can listen to on repeat like you would with any other good song. It's not just about the novelty of the first listen. We try to focus on cohesion and traditional song structures and not making it too chaotic, because those kinds of mashups are fun for a few listens, but they wear out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And with Black Hole Revelations, we, like I said, we thought about putting it under Tony's name, but, you know, Cosmo's already very well known. He's still, you know, the producer out of us that has the skill to put that stuff together, and he polished up the ideas in his own style, so that it would still feel like a Cosmic Latte album, just with a different mood.
Yeah. And I suppose it would be, you know, good and fitting for us to talk about Black Hole Revelations.
Yeah, absolutely.
At this point of us recording, I actually listened to it a few days ago. I did my reaction to it, and as I showed you with the reaction that is currently unlisted on YouTube, it was rough. There were some things that I definitely didn't expect going into that album. Like I expected a lot of the darker feel, but there were some things that were present in that record that I just did not see coming.
Yeah, well, it came from a very dark place, darker than we even realized when we first started working on it. Because, like I said earlier, when, like, we started working on this before we had figured out that we had DID, before we even knew what our worst memories were, because they were so tightly locked away, before we understood, you know, our feelings and our behaviors, and why we were the way we were at times, like under stress and stuff like that. We had been fighting with our spouse a lot, you know, still just struggling with life in general. I mean, that's been going on for years and years now, that things just kind of keep getting harder and harder in little ways, and, you know, good stuff happens that keeps us afloat and keeps us sane, but life's just been getting harder and harder, and free time is more and more scarce, and we had been trying to work on stuff for Live from the Tablecloth, and also another kind of side project that we've got in the works, under the name Bronze Archer, which is like a parody of Siva Gunner.
Okay.
And that album is, you know, if you're familiar with Siva Gunner, they do video game remixes, and
Yeah.
and a lot of times go above and beyond. Like, that actually inspired some of the stuff that went into Smart and Stupid, as far as, like, cutting up the instruments and playing different melodies with them. So you've got, like, the Beat Beat by Masheep synth break after the chorus playing, what was it, Megalovania and Jordan, or, like, in, oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. But I've done stuff
good.
like that in a few mashups already, because I had seen that kind of stuff out of the Siva Gunner community, and I also started working on video game rips of my own, which the first few I actually submitted to Siva Gunner, But the only thing that ever made it on their channel was the little bit at the end of The Quality of Jordan, where the song ends and then it does the, like, Jordan kind of warped into the Fortnite default dance track.
Okay.
I sent just that snippet in to Siva Gunner, and that got posted on their channel and was a big hit there. But like nothing else I've ever sent them has made it onto the channel, so I came up with this idea to release my video game rips as an album called Bronze Archer's Mid-Quality Rips. And
Okay.
and I've got a few tracks that are already done and set back for that, and a couple that I still need to work on. One is really ambitious. I don't want to give away the whole thing, but that one has been on the back burner for a long time, sitting like 2/3 finished, because the bass song is One Winged Angel from Final Fantasy VII, and I'm having to take the vocals from this other song and like adjust it and pitch it to be like the choir in One Winged Angel.
Yeah.
And that is a massive fucking undertaking. So that's largely why that project hasn't come out yet. A couple of those tracks are actually available as bonus tracks on Bandcamp if you buy my albums, but that's the only place to get them right now, and most of it is just sitting in a vault. And like, just to kind of scratch the itch and follow inspiration and stuff, I've released, created and released a few other singles that aren't intended for any album or anything in the meantime, just to kind of keep my channel from being completely dead for months at a time.
Of course.
And also hopping on like seasonal stuff, like I did Hella Gay, which is No Doubt's Hella Good with Montero by Lil Nas X. I did for Pride Month. I did a mashup using the theme song for Assassin's Creed Mirage when that came out, because that one was spur of the moment. Like, I was on YouTube, I got an ad for the game, I was like, this song is amazing, and it also reminds me of another song, so I grabbed that and slapped it together in like a day. I did Less Rock, More Thrill for Halloween last year, which is Thriller and Less Talk, More Rock. And I imagine you probably haven't heard any of these since you haven't put out reaction videos for any of them. But
I don't do reactions to everything, but I will say I haven't listened to everything that you've put out recently. Because I've just, I mean, from multiple changing backgrounds, people in my community especially know that my personal life has kind of gone down the drain in more recent months.
It seems like it's happening to everyone. Like, across the board, musicians, artists, a lot of furry content creators that I know, everybody just seems to have fallen on hard times the last couple of years.
The universal mood of the 2020s, I say, is just tired.
Yeah.
We're just tired and done.
Yeah.
But I will say that I did see the more recent Linkin Park mashup that you did.
Yeah.
The one with Emptiness Machine.
Yeah, that was another spur of the moment. Like, I came up with that the night of Linkin Park's comeback and the Emptiness Machine being released, but it like popped into my head right before bed. So so I hopped up and made it in like an hour and a half the next day, and had the first mashup of the new Linkin Park with a Katy Perry song that I actually ended up using two Katy Perry songs because the one that got away was like what had struck me initially, because I was like, God, the chorus melody of this new Linkin Park song sounds awful familiar, and I went, and it finally clicked right before bed that it was the one that got away by Katy Perry. That was so similar as far as like the pacing of the lyrics and some of the notes she was writing on and stuff. And then when I got in there to work on it, I also added in a couple of lines from Wide Awake, because they were both lyrically kind of fit into the one that got away, but also musically filled that gap in the two-bar pre-chorus that I couldn't do anything with the one that got away alone.
And to those of you who haven't listened, go listen to it. You will never hear either song the same way again. The day before because as I said, I do a lot of covers in terms of musician content, and I immediately hopped to see if there were instrumental versions of Emptiness Machine available, and the very next day, I want to say it was the very next day, or it was the day that the mashup came out.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I was going to say, Cosmic Uploader, we'll see what it sounds like. And I haven't been able to record anything for that cover because of that mashup, because I keep getting
you just keep wanting to sing Katy Perry instead.
Yeah. I keep getting the wrong lyrics on my tongue, and it's like, damn it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So.
But,
curse you for that one, too.
Yeah. And then another one that I actually released a good while ago now, but still haven't gotten around to. Like, I want to chart all of these individual singles that have been coming out so that I can send them into the streamers, and I'll probably send that pack to you as well, since you haven't heard a lot of it. But one of the first ones in that, I was actually commissioned by someone after Jason reposted his reaction to Symphony of Distraction on TikTok, and it went viral for a second time. Someone on TikTok had messaged me and said that they would pay me to do an extended remix of just the Taylor Swift and Megadeth that it starts out with.
Okay.
So that ended up, I took Symphony of Destruction by Megadeth and Look What You Made Me Do by Taylor Swift, and then the Leo Maracchioli cover of Look What You Made Me Do that I had also put in the original Symphony of Distraction, and just made a full-length mashup out of those three songs, and labeled that one Symphony of Distraction Taylor's version.
Oh, okay.
So...
Yeah, I saw the video, but I didn't actually watch the video.
Okay. Well,
so, yeah.
I'll be sure to send that along once I get around to that.
Yeah.
And, like, right now, it's kind of a toss-up of whether I want to do the charts for those first or the Black Hole Revelations. I've already... I did a chart for one of the singles, the Pride Month one. That was... I made the song last year, and then I did the chart and released that for Pride Month this year, but none of the rest of the singles have been charted yet. And then I've got like 2 of the songs from Black Hole Revelations charted, because I was going to try to have that charted upon release like I've done with my other albums in the past, and then I just didn't have enough time after I had already announced a release date for Black Hole Revelations. So the first 2 tracks of that are already charted, and I've just been kind of busy with other things and haven't decided where I'm going to go next.
Yeah.
And then...
so, I mean, I guess, I mean, would that mean we've kind of run through all of our topics here? Because...
pretty much, except for, going more into Black Hole Revelations and looking to the future.
Yeah. So, I guess let's keep going on Black Hole, because, again, just a whole lot in there.
Yeah.
And I specifically wanted to talk to you about the 2 that, I mean, I told you which ones they were right after the reaction was filmed. The ones that
you
really
can't even listen to
got
again.
to me.
Yeah.
I have acknowledged that both in the reaction. By the time you folks are hearing this and watching this, the reaction will have been out yesterday. So go watch if you haven't. But the 2 tracks, the Burnout song and Luck Hurts, are I never want to listen to them again. But I respect the hell out of you for making those songs what they are, because I'll admit, taking both of those songs in the way you did, just flat out ballsy move.
Yeah.
Especially the Burnout song, like that going into Luck Hurts left me with a feeling of such brutal unease.
Yeah. Well, that's by design. That was the feeling that I was trying to capture with that.
Bless you.
I need some water. So, this is Tony now. Like I mentioned earlier, when we started working on the Black Hole Revelations, we were going through a lot. We were having car problems and work problems and fighting with our spouse a lot, and it, like, for a little while there, the fights had gotten so bad over such little things that our spouse was looking into different mental health disorders and stuff, and it seemed like the one that lined up the most was narcissistic personality disorder, which, like, ticked all of the boxes, but at the same time, like, felt like that couldn't be the right answer, given that, we did have, like, empathy and, the capacity to feel for other people and care for them and stuff, but it just seemed like at times I would become very short-sighted, very selfish, very angry over any little thing not going my way. And it, it was just kind of a culmination of all of these stressors going on in my life at the same time as, well, like it was bringing up all of these old feelings that had never been addressed, and a lot of it because it was kind of like growing up, that was our normal, to just feel so beat down all the time.
Yeah.
And so started we came up with the idea to, kind of inspired by some of the stuff like Hi, My Name is Shan and Photon and such have done, where it's more of an introspective kind of take on mashups, where the song choices would be more about the lyrics than just slapping songs together because they sound good. And so we kind of dug into, like, what were we listening to during those hard times as a kid, as a teenager, and more recently with our current struggles, and going through a lot of like old hard rock music, lots of Linkin Park.
Yeah.
And just trying to figure out, like, what were the songs that resonated with me the most
Yeah.
when I was going through those times, and also, like, songs that maybe I didn't fully understand why they resonated, and digging more into the lyrics and stuff there, and started taking down notes of what songs could we combine that have similar meanings lyrically, and also, like, how does the new background music affect how those lyrics come across.
Yeah.
And
That makes sense.
and it was more of like a therapy project for ourselves, than something that we would necessarily care too much about releasing, as opposed to prior stuff we've done as Cosmic Latte, where it's all about the reactions and stuff like that. It's we want there to be hype and people anticipating the release and for it to be exciting and stuff like that. But with this one, it was just like, this isn't about any of that. This is about figuring out our own feelings first and foremost. And what ended up coming out of it was a lot of sad mashups, some angry ones, some tired ones. The ones you mentioned, which are like really, really dark, especially with the Burnout song, which was actually the last song added to the album months after most of them had been conceptualized and only a few days before the album released. Where, like, when we came up with that one, we went above and beyond to make sure that that song fully expressed the feeling of being so overwhelmed that you just can't even do anything. Yeah. You know, it's really noisy. It's got like Discord and Facebook alert sounds and a vibrating phone just to, you know, give the impression of what it's like to be me on a bad day.
Yeah.
And like that one was kind of hard to even put together, but it was, I feel like, the most impactful song on the album, even though it's the shortest and pretty simple. But we noticed while working on it that, you know, a lot of the recurring themes were alienation, loneliness, you know, feeling cut off from other people, and anxiety, depression, stuff like that. But in exploring that music, we were able to kind of figure out and you know, flesh out what our own feelings were, dig up old memories and process those feelings, and kind of understand ourselves better. Again, this was before we knew we were a DID system for most of the conception of this album, and there was one day in particular, after we had been working on it for a little while and kind of unpacking our feelings and doing other stuff to, you know, figure out what was at the root of all that. And we had an opportunity for like a celebrity meet and greet at a little event that was happening at an art museum in town, and we're really excited about that, but ended up not double checking the schedule, and the last day of it they actually closed like an hour or two earlier than the other days, so we didn't even leave the house until it was already over, and realized halfway there, you know, double check the schedule, and we're like, shit, we missed it. And for whatever reason, that struck just the right chord for us to completely break down. We ended up parking the car under a tree and just having like a full-on panic attack mental breakdown, just spiraling in our own head for like 2 hours, because we didn't want to go home feeling like that and have our spouse have to deal with us in that shape. And unfortunately it didn't really stop there. We kept spiraling for a few weeks after that, but during that time that we were sitting parked and just melting down, we kind of got deep enough into our own head to see how everything tied together, every trauma that we had faced as a kid and not even realizing that that was like major trauma. Um, like the way our stepfather treated us, and some bullies in school, and the fact that we kind of like got along with everyone, but we were nobody's best friend. We weren't like super close to anybody, so we had a really lonely childhood in hindsight, and it was just peaceful enough to make us think that it was okay. But
Yeah.
we kind of were able to dig in and connect the dots on all of those things and how they related to what we were going through today and why they were causing us to act the way they were. And that was the first time that, like, we didn't recognize what it was at the time, but Cosmo was the one having that meltdown, and while he was deep in his head, he saw me for the first time. But at that time, I still had a lot of processing to do, and what he saw was basically just this terrifying shadow figure full of rage. And it scared the shit out of him. He thought, since we had been talking about like narcissistic personality disorder and stuff, that was his ego that he was looking at, and it scared the shit out of him, and he was ashamed to have that kind of ugliness in him. But we worked on those behaviors and feelings that we had figured out, and I kind of tamed down a bit, and we continued working on the album and just continuing to process our feelings through the music that we were listening to and putting together, and then eventually figured out we were a system when it all cracked open in April. So I can't remember exactly when each of the songs was created or what was going on around those times, but
that's okay,
as
considering everything that was happening around it.
But as the album was coming together, we noticed all these themes of anger and depression and isolation and stuff like that. But what really stood out to us and surprised us was how much the feeling of hope comes out in some of the songs.
Yeah.
And that made us realize that, like, all our lives, no matter how bad things have gotten, we've never completely lost hope. Like, we've never self-harmed, we've never seriously considered suicide. We've just always kind of held on to some little seed of hope that, if we can just keep our heads down and put one foot in front of the other long enough, eventually things will be better. And I think that feeling is expressed especially well in the final track of the album, Whatever Tomorrow Brings, which is the vocal is Drive by Incubus, which has always been a favorite, but we had never really dug into the lyrics before this project, and just found that it really spoke to us. And then we put it over Creep by Stone Temple Pilots, which is a slower, more mellow kind of acoustic guitar, mostly track that goes through a few different emotional phases musically, so it kind of pulls different emotions out of the lyrics. We actually used the pre-chorus instrumental for that behind the vocal chorus, and then cut the chorus entirely, except for the very last one where we stuck the solo from Drive, because it sounded really good together with that, and also kind of lent well to the feeling at the end of Creep, where it doesn't really resolve, it just kind of stops.
Yeah.
Because, as far as the message of that song goes, it really fits as far as, we've gone through all this shit, we've found the silver linings, we've found this peace and this hope, but it's not over. This is going to continue. Kind of skipped over the whole rest of the album, but I guess I could break down each of the songs.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I know.
I totally get
Winter's the obsession.
if you don't.
Well, I do, though.
I totally get if you don't want to go into each of the songs. Like, I would completely understand that.
I do, though. I just have been rambling. It's been very stream of consciousness and not so much paying attention to my notes. But,
it's okay.
So, like the first song, Faded, is a combination of the instrumental of, what's it called? Memory by Kane Brown and Black Bear, which is essentially about, like, going through a lot of rough shit and trying not to fall back into the wrong coping mechanisms and end up becoming it's like a shell of yourself, or just disappearing, or being nothing but a memory to the people you care about. And that song alone, when it came out, there were a lot of times, and then again when I was working on this album, where I would just sit and cry because it struck home so much. And then the vocal that I put over that is Silhouette by Owl City, a song that I would have never known existed if not for one of my friends that I vent to a lot, who ended up creating a YouTube playlist called Depression Ditties, where we would each just add songs to this playlist to listen to when we weren't feeling good and needed something cathartic. And he added Silhouette to that playlist, and the lyrics just really struck me, being, having all kinds of stuff in my past that I wish I could forget or take back, at the same time as, trying to make something of myself in the present.
Yeah.
And then the next track on the album, Numb Inside, is the instrumental of Numb and by Linkin Park, and the vocals from Evanescence's Bring Me to Life, which are two such similar songs that came out right around the same time that I'm honestly shocked that nobody has mashed them before, but I went and looked to be sure I wasn't rehashing someone else's idea, and I think someone had done the opposite, where they put the numb vocal over the Bring Me to Life instrumental, and didn't even really do a good job of structuring it. But
Okay.
yeah, I went ahead and put those two together and kind of rearranged parts of the song
Yeah,
to
definitely.
fit better, and also through the Jay-Z version in the second verse, where the beat is done a little differently. That was more of Cosmo just being like, hey, this would be cool, just to make
Yeah.
the mashup a little more interesting.
Yeah, it definitely worked.
Yeah. And then track 3, Somewhere in the Dark, was one that came more from like the digging through old music that we liked and hadn't heard in a while, and found the Hoobastank song Crawling in the Dark, which is like one of their most aggressive and like darker songs that they've done, about
Yeah.
feeling isolated and trying to find their way, which is the same message as Somewhere I Belong by Linkin Park. So, like, thematically, they fit really well, but then when it came to putting together the mashup, the keys were so far different that pitching the lyrics to fit the instrumental made it sound really weird, and pitching the instrumental up kind of reduced the quality of some of the sound, so I had to like I had to like do formant shifts on the guitar so that it didn't all become noise, and
Yeah.
also ended up taking copying the bass track and doing one an octave up and one an octave down, so that it would sound decent.
Okay. Yeah.
But I made it work, and then threw in Boulevard of Broken Dreams in the bridge,
Yeah.
because it just worked so well there musically. It was kind of riding on the same sort of melodic shape that the original Hoobastank song does at that point. And another song about, feeling isolated and trying to find your way, so it was a perfect fit.
Yeah.
And then there's Anti-Madness, which I remastered for this album, because there were certain things about the mix on Cooking on Low that I wasn't really happy with, and it was actually your reaction to Cooking on Low that made me really pay attention to that song while exploring my feelings, and that was
Yeah.
at a time when I was kind of having a falling out with a friend group that was really important to me, and a lot of it was kind of my fault, and the lyrics to Antihero just really cut deep at that time. And
Yeah.
just musically what was going on with the rest of Anti-Madness, the way I had done it, it just felt like the perfect fit. So I tidied up the mix a bit there, and put that on this album.
And I remember pointing out in my reaction, I was like, why is this back in here? But I, and you all mentioned to me that like I again looked at it deeper than you guys did, because
Yeah,
it turned out that the way that you remastered it made it a lot more
it felt more
closed
isolated.
in. Yeah,
Yeah.
it felt like it gave you the feeling of claustrophobia, and it was like it impacted it so much more. And I was like, well, god damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can always come to me to overanalyze specific sounds, and I guess just art forms in general. As you pointed out, I'd be the guy in the museum staring at the abstract art piece with tears in my eyes.
Yeah.
Um,
But
but yeah, Anti Madness is it's rough.
yeah. And it's just funny to me because like when we came up with that and put it on Cooking on Low, like that wasn't even our own idea initially. That was our spouse had gotten the idea to put Mad Madness and Antihero together, and then
Yeah.
we added the Sweet Child of Mine guitar from there in place of the solo, and it just worked, and we were like, hey, this is a cool mashup. It's got that, why does this work sort of feeling. And then you were the one to really pull the feelings out of it and make us think a little harder about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was kind of projecting at that point
Well,
with my feelings
that's
about it.
that's the beautiful thing about music, though, is that like a a good song has as many meanings as it has listeners.
Yeah,
Everybody
definitely.
can identify with different parts of it or interpret it in different ways. Um, and that's one reason that we love Linkin Park so much, and that there is so much Linkin Park on this album, is because they write more about feelings than events, and that leaves it open to interpretation no matter what you've been through.
Definitely.
So then the next track on the album, December Drive, was I think the first one that we had actually put together for it, besides Anti-Madness.
Okay.
And that was an interesting one because, like, My December was one Linkin Park song that we kind of slept on. The lyrics just didn't always seem to hit home, and like musically, the original version of it was kind of boring to us. At a time in our lives when we didn't appreciate music in the same ways. Like now,
Yeah.
we recognize the genius of it being just this repetitive, empty-sounding piano loop, and how isolating that feels. But we had always liked the Reanimation version more because they added more interest to the instrumental and stuff. And then with this mashup, we decided to put it together with the instrumental to Incubus's Drive, but also pull some of the instrumental elements from the Reanimation remix of My December, and that version has some backing vocals done by Kelly Ali from Sneaker Pimps, best known for their song Six Underground, which also dives into similar feelings. So we put that in the bridge. And that ended up being one of the many songs on here about feeling isolated. So clearly that's a big one, even with all of our popularity online and stuff. It's still hard not to feel alone at times.
Yeah.
And then next in the track list is the Burnout song, which we already talked about a bit, but that, like I said, was a last minute addition to the album. We were cleaning the apartment for inspection and reorganizing a lot of stuff, and had been up for a couple of days straight because this was supposed to be like the big inspection where the actual landlord and possibly some of her higher-ups might be coming in to really look at everything with a fine comb. They were supposed to be doing that to, a random selection of apartments, and it could have been us. It ended up not, but, I mean, we tore the whole house apart and reorganized everything, because since moving in, and, not having a car and everything just being hard, the house was a mess. It was clutter everywhere. It was, stuff that we had moved in but never really unpacked or found places for. So, no sleep, working our asses off for a couple of days straight. We ended up finding an iPod and a dock for it, and hooked it up and just put it on shuffle to have something to listen to while we cleaned. And the Lazy song came on by Bruno Mars, and that, it struck me immediately that the lyrics summed up how I felt at that time and a lot of the time on rough days, but the vibe of the song was so cheerful. Bruno's singing about having a lazy day because he feels good and can relax, but you take those words and put it in a darker context, and it describes the feeling of burnout just perfectly. So I put it over Hurt by 9 Inch Nails, added a little extra distortion to that and some sound effects to just really drive home what I was feeling at the time, with people trying to get a hold of me online and things that I needed to do, and just not having the drive to do any of it.
Definitely.
I don't blame you at all for never wanting to listen to that again, but it's on days like that, it's a comfort for me.
Yeah, and as I said, I completely understand that. I just don't feel a similar way.
Right.
So.
And then up next is Luck Hurts, where I took the vocal from Hurt this time. And that one, the lyrics aren't necessarily as one-to-one with my feelings as a lot of the rest of the album, mostly because of, the allusions to drugs and self-harm and stuff like that. But, that sort of feeling is absolutely something I'm all too familiar with. I put it over the instrumental for a song called A Stroke of Luck by Garbage. That just my spouse had shown me that song a few years ago, and I just loved it for the instrumental, the vibe of that beat, and the sound design and stuff like that. and when paired with
Yeah.
Hurt, it really helped express like the feeling of kind of just going through the motions that I go through a lot. And
Yeah.
and then also in the bridge, I stuck in some lyrics from the song that Corpse did with "Bring Me the Horizon" a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Um,
I I think that song being added in there is one of the reasons why I was so off put by that song, because that inclusion specifically what was kind of what made me freak out when listening to that. Oof.
yeah, well, it fits into a lot of the same themes as Hurt. Touches on some of the same details even, and like I didn't even notice until after I had put it together, actually, but right before that verse comes in, it's Trent saying, everyone I know goes away in the end. And then the Corpse verse ends with running from myself, I can't blame them when they leave. So,
Yeah.
and so that was a perfect fit there. And plus, like, the very first time I heard Code Mistake, what really stood out to me was that line, if pain is beauty, I'm a pretty bitch.
Yeah.
Like that one just really struck home, and also is just such a cleverly written line. So I wanted to include that in there. And then, that one kind of, both being mashups of Hurt, felt like a good interlude for the album, with the Burnout song.
Yeah.
And then up next is Flies, which was actually originally intended for Tablecloth because it's just like such a mind-blowing combination to put Fireflies over Change in the House of Flies. But when I was working on the Black Hole Revelations, I realized how significant it was that the way the lyrics felt over that darker instrumental. The original song is cheerful and bright and whimsical, but when you're with that darker vibe, it feels like it's more about escapism.
Yeah.
Which is definitely something we're very familiar with. And that was another one where we had kind of gone above and beyond to really pull out that feeling by like distorting some of the vocals and adding lower harmonies that were like really crunchy and messed up.
Yeah.
And then we already talked about Whatever Tomorrow Brings, which again was kind of a way of ending the album off with a note of hope.
Yeah.
And, looking forward to the future, even though it doesn't look so great right now.
And I do like that you ended it off with at least a somewhat positive note in that respect, because love her to death, she's amazing, but talking about again, you even pointed it out as one of the projects that inspired Black Hole, Yours Truly Nevermore. That collection is very weird to me because I only go back to it when I'm really feeling down, but there is a point in there to be made about how that collection doesn't resolve on a hopeful note. And I really find that dichotomy between Black Hole Revelations and YTN. I find that contrast really interesting because, yeah, at the end of Revelations, there is some light at the end of the tunnel to look forward to. But with YTN, as you said, which was one of the inspirations, there wasn't any. So
Yeah.
I guess the question that I do have is, besides the, I mean, I guess it could be just this, but was the message of hope at the end of the album because things have been slowly just getting just that little bit better for you all? Or was there a different reason for that being the case?
Um, that was actually one of the first ones that we came up with for this album, but well, like its placement at the end was definitely for that purpose, largely because of realizing through the other songs that there's always kind of that kernel of hope, except
Yeah.
for the two in the middle. It was just kind of that revelation that things are getting steadily better for us mentally, and like especially since finding out we were a system, and getting to know ourselves better. Knowing that we're 5 different people has given us a stronger sense of who we are than we ever had thinking we were one person. We didn't know who we were, what we wanted out of life, anything like that. But again, Whatever Tomorrow Brings was actually one of the earliest mashups done for this album, and continuing to work on the album and dig into darker stuff and realizing what was coming out of it lyrically and musically, kind of helped us realize that we do have that hope, and we have always had that hope. And it just felt important to, highlight that at the end of the album, because it does feel like through the process of making this album, we have made so much progress on our mental health. And, despite all the shit we're still going through, even today, we're doing so much better mentally than we have in years. It's weird to say with so much going on and so much stress all the time, but we can honestly say we've never been happier.
Yeah.
And that was a weird and unexpected revelation from working on this album.
Yeah. And I suppose with the conversation regarding Black Hole Revelations out of the way, we've kind of run through our laundry list of topics.
Yeah.
So I guess the last question I have for you all is, what is in the future for you, as you know, as far as content creation goes, as far as just general life stuff at this point? Because as you've pointed at, a fair bit has recently gone on. So I guess what is next for you all?
Um, well, it's probably going to be more of the same for a while, just kind of trying to catch up on our commissions and stay afloat. We still don't have a working vehicle, so I have to ride my bike to the store and errands and stuff like that. We're just kind of trapped in the house all the time.
Okay.
And so progress is going to be slow, but we do have so much content planned or in progress. There's, uh, tables and memes too, which we've been working on for on and off for like 3 years now, almost 4.
Oh wow.
That we'd like to be able to go back to and finish up at some point. We, still have Live from the Tablecloth and Bronze Archer's mid-quality rips on the back burner, that we'd like to get to, hopefully soon, if we can make time to get the Black Hole Revelations and the singles collection charted. Then that'll be next on the agenda there. I also have a new mod chart that should be coming out soon, that was actually commissioned by another charter who is friends with a couple pretty well-known EDM producers who would like to use mod charts of their songs as stage visuals. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and one of those is almost done, and I'm workshopping ideas for the next one. So that'll be pretty exciting once we can get that out. I'm probably still gonna have like mashup singles as the ideas come, for holidays or new songs or whatever.
Yeah.
And
I did want to ask, because you did one to over each other. Are you going to be doing more reactions in the future to maybe music and that sort of material?
I definitely would like to. And hopefully it'll turn out better. That reaction, we had a pretty rough day and just squeezed it in once we had time, but weren't really in the mood. So, like, we had done, this was our first video on camera in a long, long time, and we had talked a bit about DID and our system before going into it, and then ended up cutting that because Cosmo was just, like, when we get beat down, he kind of gets stuck up front, and the rest of us can't really come forward as easily. So, we did a whole spiel on this is what DID is, this is our system, and if you hear our voice change to be like this or like this, then this is who's talking. And then Cosmo was front stuck the whole song. So we just cut that out.
Okay.
But we do hope to do more reactions like that in the future, and be like more at ourselves and more able to pick things out and react. Because another thing we noticed was that he didn't have much to say. He totally missed the twist in the video. It was...
Yeah.
So that one was pretty rough, but we do definitely want to do more reaction videos going forward. We are absolutely planning on recording our reaction to the new Linkin Park album when it drops, which is in like a week as of recording. And
yeah, I had that on my reaction list already. So
yeah, I'm very excited about that. I haven't recorded any reactions to any other Linkin Park stuff that's been coming out, but I mean, I'm thrilled. Like, I love Emily, I love Colin. They bring such great energy to the stage and behind the scenes. They sound amazing. Really excited about this new era, and that's been one thing that I think has helped a lot with my mental state lately too, because Linkin Park was my first favorite band, and with this comeback, like, it feels like discovering them for the first time all over again, and
yeah,
you know, the songs are hitting me just as hard now as the old stuff did back then. You know, getting to me on a personal level and stuff like that. So that's been really good to have at this point in my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, as far as future plans, we also started that band, the Coat Tablers, with Bandy Pat. We've released a couple of songs as the Coat Tablers, but and we've got a few more in the works, but that's all kind of been on the back burner too, because both of us moved this year and are both just kind of going through a lot right now, and not really able to dedicate any time to that. And plus, like, when we do, like, the first couple of songs that came out are like parodies and covers. You know, pretty easy, straightforward process creatively, but a lot of the stuff that we're hung up on right now is original lyrics and trying to figure out, you know, what exactly it is we're trying to say and how to say it. Within whatever song concept we've got going. So there's a few good ideas rolling around, but none of them really finished to a point where we can record anything. And and like I said, we just haven't really had the time to put into fleshing that stuff out, but it's still there. We still want to. And then like I mentioned earlier, Tony's rock album that he wrote, we'd like to record at some point in the near future. Anything could change at any point. It's hard to say, you know, what's going to go on in our lives and creatively until then. But right now, our plan seems to be pretty much to see the current Cosmic Latte content through, you know, get the Black Hole Revelations and the singles charted, and finish Tablecloth and get that charted and released. And then at that point start focusing more on the Coat Tablers and Tony Porcher. And probably, you know, put the mashups to the back for a while. Which isn't to say that it would be completely over. I'm sure we'll always have ideas that we just have to jump on as soon as they come to us and stuff. But
Yeah.
I think the way things are looking right now, Live from the Tablecloth is probably going to be the last Cosmic Latte album. It in the sense of like an album as a singular entity and not just a collection of songs.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. It does seem like a lot of the other mashup artists in the space are taking that route too. Like they're on some of their final projects for the at least foreseeable future.
Yeah.
So I completely understand where you're coming from with that one.
And then the last thing I haven't really mentioned yet, I just wanted to kind of tease another meme mod chart that Bandy and I have been working on. It's been kind of on the back burner for a little while too, but it should come together more quickly once we can work on it. We've taken an old System of a Down song and given it the classic treatment, but with some new samples and stuff to keep it fresh, and it's going to be a mod chart, and we're pretty excited about that.
Alright.
So
I'll be sure to at the very least do a reaction to it, so yeah. Awesome.
but,
Anything else to say before we have our outro here?
I got nothing.
Alrighty. This was awesome to have you on here. This is
Thank you so
actually,
much for having
as
me.
I'm recording this is the last episode to be recorded of season 2, which is going to be starting up pretty soon here in the beginning of December. So that is yay. Again, thank you for coming on, all you. It's been awesome to talk to you about just the craziest stuff. And to you all who are listening, thank you for having more than the attention span of goldfish, because we really need people on YouTube that are more like you. So if you like what you all listen to here in our conversations, leave likes, leave comments about everything. I will leave all of the cosmic socials, I guess I'll call them, in the description below, so you can check out Rayne and Cosmic and all of all of the stuff that these lovely people create, because it is actually amazing. I'm gonna give you all about 20 seconds to say whatever you want into the mic, as long as it's not problematic. Go.
Buy our albums and like and subscribe and all that good YouTube stuff. we need your support to survive.
Yes. Very, very true. But that is gonna be about it from us. Peace, everybody. In due time.
Bye.